I'm going to close the blinds so there's not like
Oh,
weird
okay.
light things on my face, but go ahead. I'll
Okay.
join.
Right. Yay, we are live. And Lucy is joining me in a second. She decided to switch the lights. Hi, Lucy. I'll give a few minutes for people to hop on, but as we're doing that, welcome. I want to introduce myself so you know kind of what this conversation is centered around and who I am. If you haven't dove into my work, my name's Amanda Levesque, and I have this platform called Science and Magic. And I love offering nervous system education paired with the more esoteric spirituality and the unknown and the unseen realms of working in a way that's delicious. And I specifically specialize in working with high achievers and high performers and help them to ground into their bodies and ground into their lives to create more, I don't like the word balance, but to create more ease maybe within the often chaos of their work. Lucy here is one of my amazing clients. I just love working with her, and we are moving through a 6-month journey called Work Deliciously. And this is the second of 4 conversations we'll be having that go in accordance with the curriculum. This one centers around heart and how to work in a heart-centered way. Our society and the norm that many of us operate in is stuck in the head. We're very, very head-centered in general in society, and especially as high performers, we get stuck in the head. We get stuck in being results oriented and thinking in a linear way. And the heart really offers this intelligence that taps us into intuition and emotion, which can do wonders for our business. So whether you have your own business, whether you work for a company, I think this conversation is going to be really impactful and influential. So let's have you start by introducing yourself, Lucy. I know that you did so in the first conversation, but just a brief overview of what you do, who you are, and then we'll start into talking about the heart.
Yeah, thank you, Amanda. Yeah, in my primary business, I help people who want to lose weight but are struggling with it do so in a way that is both physically and emotionally and mentally healthy and sustainable. In a lot of sense, I do very similar work in that I help people who beat themselves up when it comes to their health around food, around weight loss, really dig into their own internal, like their inner work, their psychology, and really understand their psychology when it comes to their own bodies, when it comes to food, when it comes to exercise, and be able to understand that and work with it in order to make lifelong lasting changes.
And what drew you to this program, Work Deliciously? Let's start there. Like what intuitively drew you? Because often we hire coaches to help us push forward into results. And my approach is more of like, okay, I say I'm the coach that helps you to just be.
Yeah.
What drew you to that as a high achiever?
Yes. Well, I knew that in my work, I know that, the reason why I started this work is because this was like a mission, a thing that I was really passionate about as somebody who has struggled with weight and body image and food herself for many, many years. And so when I first started doing this work, doing this business, it was hard. I mean, it was always hard as in there was a lot of work to do. There was a lot of stuff to do is the way I would say it, but I had a lot of fun doing it. And I was like fueled by just pure, like, passion, like, that adrenaline, that passion, which is a great source of energy, but it can be limited. And so I found myself getting into the cycle where I would, it would start feeling like work was really stressful for me, even though I was still really passionate about it. So fun would end up turning into stress at some point. I would miss it when it happened. But then I would keep just trying to push myself past all of that and eventually hit a point of overextension and exhaustion and burnout. And, then I would figure out how do I rest and get myself back up to that level of high energy again. And I would get back up, but then I would go through the cycle again where I would like hit burnout. And this like up and down just happened so many times. And each time it was more and more difficult to get back up when I went down. So, at some point I'm like, I think I'm working too hard, or I don't know what I was doing, to be honest, but I know something wasn't feeling right. And I also felt that like I was getting more and more less done the more I was trying to work, and that just didn't feel right to me. And when I saw your page, and there were just so many words you said that resonated with me, like work can be easy, which is something I believe in, but I didn't practice. You also said something like time gets to expand for you, which is something that I was like, oh my God, yeah, time is feeling like it's just getting more and more constricting, not the other way around, which is again, something that just didn't feel right. It's like, as I run my own business, shouldn't it feel like time is expanding, not getting more constrictive? And so all of these things, it was like you said something that I've always believed in, but could not really get myself to practice it in person. And that's really what drew me to this.
That is such a, I think, common story in so many ways, especially for those of us who have our own businesses, is that it starts from this place of passion and fire. And we almost get so swept up in it that we forget to bring our bodies with us. And this leads to burnout. So then from this place of passion, we almost create this, I mean, for lack of a better word, this like monster of a business. And then it's hard to keep up with it. It has its own consciousness, and we haven't brought our bodies to work with us. So we're just leaving our bodies behind. And it's difficult because often we love our work, we love our business, and it feels good to get swept away in it. But the truth of the matter is that we're in these bodies, we have these nervous systems, and that can only last for so long that we avoid listening to them until they start screaming to us. So I'm so glad to be working with you in this way, and your process has been so inspiring so far. For this conversation, I want to start with, for you, what does it feel like to work from the head? And what does it feel like to work from the heart? So maybe you can talk about what it feels like. And then if you have examples, sometimes it can be hard to think of examples on the spot, but just maybe for those listening, distinguishing those two things, because they can be very elusive in some ways.
Yeah, definitely. I'll say that what I used to define as working from the head and working from the heart has changed a little bit. Because in the past, I thought working from the head just means making logical, rational choices, and it is that. And I thought that heart meant being reactive, like making snap judgments, like being quote unquote emotional in the way that is generally perceived as negative. And what I've come to realize through this work with you is that there's conscious decision making, and then there's like programming based decision making, which is based on your program patterns, and that there's ways of making decisions from the head and the heart, both from a conscious place. And when I kind of made that kind of insight, I realized that when I was making those snap judgments, those emotional decisions, the reactive stuff, they were often based on fear. And those actually didn't come from the heart. Those actually did come from my head. My rational, logical decision-making came from my head too, but so did the snap judgment, kind of reactive, fear-based stuff. And the reason I realized that those also kind of came from the head was because they were based on stories. They were based on a perceived fear of like what's going to happen in the future. Usually it's like a future-driven thing. And so that kind of leads me to my current, like what I currently think, how I currently perceive head-based decision-making versus heart-based decision-making. For me, a head-based decision-making, it is around solving a problem. It is usually around like, how do I fix something, or how do I solve something? How do I figure something out? And it is, I mean, I can literally feel it in the head. First of all, I can feel the cogs turning in here. And it can be like, when I come at it from a very conscious place, thinking from the head feels very like objective, like it's very problem solving. Like there's a resolution, and if I get that resolution, then there's like the sense of like relief. It's like the best way I can think about it. So it's a great tool to use when you actually do have a problem that you need to solve. And it can also feel challenging and like in like a good way, right? If you approach it from a conscious place, it can also feel like challenging in a good way. Whereas when I make decisions from the heart, there is it's more about the present, and there's no when I make when I make decisions from the head, there's usually like some kind of step-by-step process that's like connecting all the dots together, and a story is getting formed. Not all like some, and then some stories are productive stories, right? They're stories directly related to the problem to explain because A, then B, then C, then D. Sometimes the stories are unproductive stories. They're stories that are about assumptions, about the world, assumptions about the future, and usually it's like fear driven, right? So one of the biggest difference is that when I make decisions in the head, there is some story that's getting formed. When I make decisions about the heart, there is no story. When I make decisions from the heart, it's almost purely like a visceral kind of like a hit. I've described it as sometimes there's like a wind in my back pushing me towards doing something, or just like when I'm doing exactly what I should be doing, then I feel like nothing. I feel like the sense of deep peace and calm. So sometimes I will drop into my heart and be like, okay, what do I really want right now? What do I really want to do right now? If the answer is exactly what you're doing, then I feel this like deep sense of calm. Like, yep, this is exactly it. Otherwise, I will either feel like a wind in my back kind of push to go somewhere or do something, or if I need to stop, there will be like this, there will be kind of like the sensation of almost like closing, that's like, we need to stop right now. So it's more of a body kind of thing, and there's no story attached to it. Like sometimes I've made heart-based decisions that drew me into a more painful situation, but I got a revelatory experience out of it. But in the moment, it didn't feel very good. But that's where like kind of like my body wanted to go. And so that's kind of like the way that I would differentiate the two right now. And I think the biggest one is just that there's no story attached to it. There's no really explanation attached to it. Like when you're making that, when that heart is telling you what to do, there's no like reasons for why. Like you can come up with reasons later. There's probably reasons, but like in the moment, there is no reasons, but it feels so good to do it, such that when I do the thing, the journey itself is like, feels good, like feels rewarding. And whereas with head-based decisions, it's usually the result that feels rewarding. That's kind of another way I can tell the difference. Actually, one test I do for myself, if I'm really not sure, is I ask myself, like, imagine I finished doing the thing, how would I feel? And usually if the answer is relief, it's probably a head-based decision. And if the answer is just like, whether or not the result happened, I feel good, then it probably is a heart-based decision.
I love this distinction. And what a lot of people don't know is that the heart has its own cluster of neurons, of nerve cells, and on their own, independently from the brain, they can process information from the environment around us. The brain has all sorts of wiring from our past. It is conditioning. It is stories. It is conditioning from family, from society, from culture, from all of our experiences. So when we make decisions from the brain, all of that is playing into those decisions, which if the stories are helpful to us and empowering, that can be a really good thing. But if they are disempowering, we are not making decisions from our most authentic core essence self. And what I love about heart intelligence is you drop your attention into your heart, and the decision or the information that's there, it transcends the stories. There's a wisdom there. There's an intelligence there. And because of that, the decisions are almost less cloudy, but you have to be okay with not knowing. And that's what a lot of people struggle with. Like, I don't know why, but this just feels right. And that could maybe be tapped into what some describe as intuition. I'm curious how you would explain intuition, or what that looks like for you, and how you've been working with your own, maybe over the past few weeks of us doing this heart work.
Yeah. The best way for my own subjective experience, I would explain intuition as kind very similar to what you're saying. It's almost like a whole body kind of reaction to something without you having reasoning or story behind why this might be the case. But it's that deep, either it's like a deep draw or inspiration to do something or agree with something or believe something or say something, or like a deep kind of like discomfort with something when something's not the right thing to do, right? It's like there's something you can't explain. As a matter of fact, for me, when you have an intuitive hit, even when you try to use try to explain it away, or you don't understand why that's the right choice and you try to explain it, like the explanations don't always, if you try to explain it away, it doesn't feel resolved. Even if you use all the logic in the world, it doesn't feel resolved. And so that, because like there's something that's like within the body, there's this like, it's almost like this compass, this guiding system, like telling you to go one way. And if you try to like convince yourself to go the other way, like the body is still like, you'll still feel it in your body that, but you want to go this way. And I like that you describe it as like a second brain, in that, yes, it does. That is exactly what it feels like. I would say an intuitive, when I get like an intuitive hit, I actually feel it in my body. I don't feel it here up, right? I actually feel it somewhere in my body, and it's usually the heart. Sometimes I do feel it in other areas, but it's usually in the chest area. And I do believe that it's like, it's also tied to an emotion. When I feel like an intuitive pull or push from something, there's like an emotion attached to it. And there's no thoughts running really about it. Like the thoughts can come later. Like I'll get an intuitive hit and then my thoughts will try to reason why this is happening. And a lot of times it brings in stories in that reasoning. So sometimes my reasoning isn't always true when I get an intuitive hit. But the intuitive hit is always true because that's in my body. It's like the emotion there is always true. And so I like what you said, Amanda, about how, I think you said something about how it tells you like what is actually your truth. And that's something that I really, that's what made me really start to value it, is when I noticed that sometimes I will have an intuition to say yes or no to something. And I don't know why. And I find myself trying to make up reasons for why. And those reasons are oftentimes not correct, or they're sometimes wrong. But the choice to say yes or no usually is the right thing, right? Regardless of what the reason was. And when I say the right thing, I don't mean the right thing as in the exact outcome was what I expected. I meant the right thing as in this was coming from a place of my truth. Even if the outcome wasn't exactly what I expected, it was something that worked out for me, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Because I think I'm always coming from, like, when your intuition is active, you're operating from your truth, right? Because
Yes.
that's what your emotions are. They're honest reflections of how you really truly feel in the moment. And logic can sometimes override that. Mm-hmm. And but if you're running your own business, or even if you're working for someone else, I don't think it's sustainable to fake believing in something you don't believe in, or do something that isn't aligned with what you really care about or who you are. That's living out of integrity, and I don't think living out of integrity is very sustainable. I think the biggest thing with heart-based, being in my heart space more, is that I'm living more in integrity, even though the outcomes don't always look exactly like what I thought they were going to look like. It works out better for me in the end. That's the best way I can describe it.
Yes. The heart helps us to live in integrity, and it guides us on the path that's most for us. And different, I mean, the heart is woven into our language. I want to point that out. So thinking about like, I love you with all my heart, or I'm following my heart, or I'm heartbroken. We don't say that about other organs. Like, I'm following with my liver. Like, I love you with all my gallbladder. There's something, it's woven into our language. It has been woven into various spiritual traditions as being the center point of some sort of really intelligent decision making. And we may not know why or how. Now, the Heart Math Institute is a nonprofit organization that has published hundreds of peer-reviewed scientific articles to study the heart. And there's a field called neurocardiology. So there's some sort of crossover between science and that spiritual tradition that's starting to happen right now. But I think for now, most of us, when we lean into, okay, when are times where I've felt intuition, and when I've followed that intuition, it's led me somewhere beyond what I could even rationally anticipate with my logical mind. Most of us have had these experiences. And one thing I thought that was interesting with you, Lucy, is that we were playing around with when you're in conversation with colleagues or in a meeting and you have an intuitive hit, but you don't quite feel like you can voice it because you don't have the why. Yeah. And I think, me being an advocate for really body-based working, I think that being able to say, this is a yes, or this is a no, or I want to do this, and I don't have a logical reason, but it's my intuition, and normalizing that sort of dialogue in our work culture, I think is a really important thing. So anyone watching this, I encourage, if it feels okay in your work environment, sometimes this can be easier when we have our own businesses. When we're in like someone else's company and this is not like the norm, it can feel maybe not the super safest thing to do, but really leaning into like, my intuition's valid, my inner knowing's valid, my heart is valid. And being able to just say like, this is what I feel, even though I don't know, will give others the permission slip to do the same. And then we will all, hopefully in our work, be guided by this unknown, non-logical way of being, which has an intelligence beyond our mind, that's beyond our condition, that leads us to our truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What I found is that even just like what I've been practicing saying more is just, I don't feel good about this, or I feel good about this. And I don't know why. And those simple words, people accept those. People accept that. It's when I try to explain the why, but when I try to desperately, frantically figure out a reason for why I want something, just because I want to convince other people, just because I want to seem credible, just because I want to look credible, right? Like that actually gets me in trouble more than when I just say, I don't want to do this, or I want to do this and I don't know why. Because when I try to make up reasons on the spot, and the reasons are not well thought out, the reasons aren't coming from a place of consciousness most of the time either. They're coming from a place of me frantically trying to explain myself to someone because I'm afraid that they won't accept me for just my heart, I guess is the way I would say it. And a lot of story comes from that. The reasons I start putting on, it's like I have my what I want to do, what I don't want to do. And then I started layering on all these story-based reasons on top of it, like not actual consciously thought out reasons. They're like story-based reasons on top of it. And then I give my coworkers this thing with like all these armor and bundles on top of it. And they're seeing the stuff I put on top of it. And they're just like picking apart at my reasons, right? Because I handed them a bunch of reasons. They're picking apart at my reasons. And then I feel like I'm not heard. When really, had I just given them the thing from the very beginning, what did I actually want to say? What does my heart actually want to say? Usually what my heart wanted to say is the honest thing, right? So I'm like, okay, what did my heart actually want to say? Usually it's just, I don't want to do this. It makes me feel icky or something. I don't know why, I just feel icky. Usually when I say that, then people are like they still, like a lot of times they still may want, if you're working with a team, if you're working with a lot of people, they still may want to know reasons, right? But they're going to believe you when you say, this makes me feel icky. They're going to take you seriously if they are, well, or I guess I can't speak for everybody, but my team does, right? They're like, oh, this makes you feel icky. Okay, let's not do this thing. Let's try to figure out why. So they still want to figure out why, and then I can say, I don't know why. Like, I don't know why, let me either like, let me get back to you later, or I don't know why, and leave it at that. And then like, have them, come up with the explanation, or sorry, have them come up with a response. Like sometimes I'm like, well, I don't know why. And then they're just like, okay, well, then let's just test it. Right. So sometimes they don't need people will ask for why, because that's what we do. We like to know reasons. Right. Mm-hmm. But it's not, I think I've learned to trust that I can just say what I think. And because that's the most honest thing. And that's even because if I don't know why and I pretend to know why, that's actually being very dishonest to myself. It's being very dishonest to other people. And I think it hurts everybody in the long run. But yeah, and I find that most people don't actually like demand like a reason out of you if you are very confident in your feelings, if that makes sense. Like if you're wobbly in your feelings, like you're not, if I'm coming from a place of like, oh well, I don't know about this, I don't know about that, then they will try to kind of convince you in a little, or at least it'll be, because they don't want you to feel wobbly, they don't want you to feel uncertain, so they're like, oh, Lucy's uncertain, let's help make her certain. But if you're certain that you do or don't want to do something, even if you don't know why, or if you're certain that you don't know the answer, right? It's like, I'm certain that I don't know the answer, so I'm just going to say, I don't know, but say it with such confidence. People don't judge you for that. And they don't try to convince you out of not knowing, if you're confident about it, right? Mm-hmm. It's such an ironic way of kind of looking at it, but the more certain I am of how uncertain I am, the more easily I move through life.
Yes. It sounds like, so when you're trying to explain yourself from a head-centered place, when you're in your head trying to offer explanations, it pops others into their heads, and then they try to have the argument in the story. If you're in your heart, it activates their heart, and then there's a more direct, different way of communicating. Mm-hmm. That's body-based and feeling. And I know the Heart Math Institute has done kind of research about this. You can actually measure heart rhythm in each person by hooking them up to a machine that measures the electricity and the beating of the heart. And when you're in a state of what's referred to as coherence, and this means your nervous system's in balance, it means that your brain is firing in a holistic way that's not fragmented. What happens is it moves others into a state of coherence without you saying or doing anything. You just moving your body into a state of balance makes a coherent state in your heart rhythm that can be measured. And they've done studies where that moves others into a state of coherence. So our nervous systems are designed to sense each other, because that has helped us to survive. If we were out in, if our ancestors were out in a field and there was a predator and one nervous system sensed the predator, then the other nervous systems are designed to sense that biology and also move into a state of fight or flight. Now, if you're in a state of balance, the other nervous systems in the space are like, okay, it's okay, it's safe. And it pops us all into, not all, that's a big word, but it can pop the people who are in space with you, whether digitally, especially in person, into a state of coherence just by dropping your attention into your heart, being in a state of balance and speaking. That comes through in facial expression, that comes through in voice tone. There's all these cues that go on beyond our conscious logical reasoning that we're sensing in each other. So when we build a heart-centered business, or we move into our work environment in a heart-centered way, it by proxy moves others into that space, into their heart as well. And that's really how we build in this. I think the heart's way more delicious than the brain. But with that being said, I do want to touch on the point. I work with many clients who, when they tap into their heart, it's not ooey gooey. Like, it's not always this delicious feeling. There's a lot that lives in the heart. There's a lot of memories, emotions, there's anxiety, like the chest can feel tight, the heart can feel constricted. And the heart may also not lead us on the path of rainbows and butterflies always. That's not the intelligence. So I know you had some experience around working with your heart in a way where you were surprised by the path it took. And I wonder if you might be open to sharing that with viewers of how you thought the heart was going to lead you one way, but it actually led you in this opposite way. And it ended up offering you a state of healing.
Yeah, yeah, this happens a lot where I have a tendency to actually, this is exactly the problem I was talking about earlier. I have a tendency to try to over explain when I want to say something to my coworkers, to my prospects, like my prospects who want to become clients. And what so there was a situation where I had like an email or something that I needed to respond to, and I was finding myself really frustrated because there was a point I wanted to get across, but I was trying to figure out what's the best way to explain it in a way that won't offend them, but also gets the point across and doesn't burn bridges or something like that. Anyway, so I was like thinking too hard and typing a lot and revising and re-revising what I was writing. And I was just getting really frustrated because I was like, I'm putting so much energy into just like this one email and I don't even know if this person like cares. And and then and then I dropped into my heart a little bit because I noticed I was like all up in here at this point. So I did drop into my heart. I'm like, okay, before all these thoughts and stories came up, what did I actually want to do? Right? It's like remove the layers again. I always think when I drop into my heart, I'm just removing layers. I'm clearing out the noise. I'm like, what is it that I actually wanted to do? And it was like, keep doing. My heart doesn't speak in words. I guess that's another difference. When I'm in my head, the answers I get back are usually in words. The answers I get back in my heart are not words. They're just feelings, right? And so what I felt, right, was the sense of keep doing what you're doing. And that just surprised me. I'm like, are you sure? I'm like, am I still in my brain? But I'm like, no, clearly in my chest. And it didn't feel good in my chest. It did not feel good. There was like this kind of tightening sensation that I feel when I'm in stress mode, right? And I was in stress mode, but the tightening sensation was kind of pushing me to just bam out this email, just keep getting through with it. And I don't know why, like there wasn't words that told me to do that, but I knew that okay, this is actually what I wanted to do. I wanted to write this email and go down this rabbit hole where I'm over explaining things. So I did it and it felt bad. And I knew it was going to feel bad. And because by bad, I meant it just felt frustrating to write this email. And the whole time I was kind of just paying attention to how frustrating this was feeling. And yet, just do it anyway, see what happens. And then right before I hit send, something in my body actually changed. Like right before I hit send, like in my chest area, that's where I feel, my emotions mostly. And there was just this like almost calm kind of feeling, but it felt like stopping on the gas. That it was that feeling. It was like stepping on the brake pedal, and then calm. And then when I felt that, I didn't hit send because I was like, oh, I don't want to hit send anymore. And at that moment, after I wrote this monster email and before I hit send, I looked at it. Right. I felt it as my heart was I felt it as though if my heart could speak, I would say it was telling me, okay, don't send this email. Don't send this email and just see what's in front of you. And so I looked at what's in front of me. I saw the email and then all these limiting beliefs came up. Because when I read the email from this place of like, I stepped on the brakes and I'm looking at it, it was almost like I looked at it from a fresher perspective. And I saw this limiting belief kind of show up that I am not a believable person, and therefore I can't just say what's on my heart. I can't just say what I'm actually thinking. I have to like layer and layer and layer upon all these explanations and these like making people feel good. And like, there's part of me that doesn't think that I'm a believable person. And then there's part of me that thinks like the person I'm talking to, like, can't manage their own emotions, right? Because I was like afraid I would offend them. So I was using all this language to kind of make things softer sounding. Mm-hmm. And when these came up, I was like, oh, if I don't have those two beliefs, right? If I believe that I'm a believable person and I believe that anybody who I talk to can manage their own psychology, or else they're not a good client for me anyway, or can manage their emotions, and if they get offended by what I really wanted to say, they probably weren't a good client or something like that, that I reframed kind of those beliefs. Then what would this email look like? And then like I hacked away 75% of it. And it was very easy to like hack away the parts that didn't need to be the layers, right? So that it came to the truth of what I wanted to say. And then when I finished hacking everything off, then in my body, what I felt was like just the sense of just like this really pleasant peace kind of feeling. And openness. And at that point, I kind of knew that, okay, this is what I originally wanted to say before I put all the layers on. And what was fascinating was that, yeah, it led to the point where I eventually felt ooey gooey. But the first thing that, my heart kind of directed me to do was to lean into that frustration. And if I hadn't leaned into that frustration, I wouldn't have been aware of what thoughts and programming and stories were running as I was writing this email. Like it was because it was so in the moment that I think I made those realizations of, what the reason why I wanted to write such a hefty email was because of those two limiting beliefs, right? Now I could ask my brain all day long, like, why did I write so much? Why did I do? And my brain might come up with like all sorts of reasons, but I think like, and because I've asked it in the past and it came up with all sorts of reasons and they weren't always the right reasons, but when I just like kind of like just leaned into it and brought consciousness to what I was doing as I was doing it in the moment, it was like those limiting beliefs like came up for me more clearly. And that was something that surprised me, because I always thought heart-led, when I hear heart-based decisions, I always think, oh, it's all positive kind of things.
Yes. Yeah. I love this example because it's also how to move the energy of emotions. We think, okay, so I'm feeling frustration. I need to transcend it and find joy. But really the emotions are there to lean into fully and to hear fully. And then in doing that, they're able to be moved. I've said this before in many videos, but it's like having a friend sit with you who's having a bad day and you're having tea and you're like, okay, I don't want to hear about your bad day. Please hurry it up or get out. That's what it's like with our emotions. So the heart was guiding you to say, okay, lean into the frustration, lean into this feeling. And then in doing so, you were able to transcend or shift that belief. And the heart knew, and you had the skill set in that moment to say, okay, this doesn't feel good, but it still feels like my heart. So I'm going to trust it. And in doing so, you were able to deepen into a healing path for you that was even more. I mean, it's just an example of the heart. It's like, it goes beyond reasoning. It goes beyond the mind. And it's a really potent way to live. So we've done some work around what does it look like? Because I think we walk around our society being like, okay, when we think of the body, we're like, the brain's really big and we're brain centered and we're walking around from the brain. And the brain is almost on this throne of the kingdom of the body. We revere it. A lot of us do as that subconsciously as a culture for sure. So we've been doing some work around what's it like to put the heart on the throne of the body? What's it like to give the heart authority to lead and how to do that? So I'm curious for those tuning in who want to work and live in a heart-centered way. How have you done that? What are practices, A, to connect you to your heart on a regular basis, and B, leaning into it in the moment of decision-making or being triggered or finding joy? So both this like gentle, what are some daily practices you have to just link into your heart? And then how do you access it when in the heat of the moment?
Yeah. It's interesting because the daily practices are what I also do in the heat of the moment, right? And it's, for me, it's just very simply drop into the heart. So what does that mean? It just means I actually imagine, it's funny, I actually literally, it's almost like I imagine my brain is riding an elevator down into my heart. That's sometimes, if I'm really in my brain, that's sometimes the visualization I have to do. I'm like, okay, well, brain, if you still want to be active, then at least why don't I just bring you down into the same room as the heart? That's what I do when I'm really active. When I'm not, so I'll talk about what I do as a daily practice first, and then what I do in the moment. So what I do as a daily practice is just when I wake up, I usually do some affirmations and visualizations when I wake up. And then afterwards, I'll actually put my hands on my heart, and then just kind of, ask it, sometimes with words, sometimes it's not really with words, it's just with intention, because I don't know. Yeah, me and my heart, we don't communicate with words anymore. We just communicate with intentions. I have this intention to my heart. It was like, what will you have me say and do today? And I did my affirmations. I'm like, okay, you know my affirmations, you know what I want to live, how I want to live. I just said it. Now, what would you have me do? Create a, what would you have me do for the day, and make it really clear for me. And I'm willing to see and hear. And that's pretty much it. And then kind of give it, for me, it's like, I'm giving it permission, right? It's like, I do kind of like this morning ritual where I'm just like, I give you permission, because sometimes, because like the best way I can explain it is because I've lived my entire life ignoring the heart and try to like, put it away. That for the first time when I did this, I felt this kind of like resentment in a way that's showing up from this side of me, like this more in touch with emotion side of me, which is like, I don't believe you actually trust me. Like, I think you're going to judge me if I tell you what I'm going to say. Like those kind of thoughts kind of showed up. So I was like, okay, so it's like every day I give it permission in case it forgets. I'm just like, no, you still have permission to tell me what you'd like me to do. What will you have me do? So I do that, that ritual where it's like, I give you permission to tell me your thoughts. And usually at the, either after lunch or usually at the end of the day, I do a heart-based meditation where I put my attention in my heart, and then as I'm breathing, I kind of pretend I'm breathing from the heart, right? And I love your idea that you had where it's like, actually imagine that there's actually like mouths and noses, coming from your heart, and it's actually like taking breath in. And so I imagine there's like these little noses like everywhere, like all around me, and it's taking breath in from everywhere. And it's a very calming kind of meditation, but it also like gets me into that more, like I feel sensations. Help me be more aware of the sensations that are happening here, even if it's just breathing and not doing anything. Like there's still sensations that I can feel. And I do that for just like 5 to 10 minutes, really. It's not really that much, but it helps me kind of like just remember that, oh, that's right. This is here for me. This resource is still here. And I don't forget about it. And whenever I do that, I notice that things get so much quieter. Like the brain just get like all the stories just like go away. Sometimes they come back, but like when my intention's in my heart, it's like the stories suddenly don't matter anymore. And it's so funny because I feel like I'm seeing reality. It's like when I'm in my heart, sometimes I'm like, oh, that's reality, right? It's not these stories, it's the stuff behind the stories. Oh, here's my real world. So that's always an interesting experience. And what I do when I'm kind of in those moments where I'm a little I'm stressed, or I'm a little wound up, or I feel like I'm not behaving like myself in front of other people. I think that's my biggest sign, when it's like, and that's my heart kind of calling out to me, is how I like to frame it, is that my heart is telling me like that, hey, Lucy, you're not behaving like yourself right now. Because I feel a very specific sensation in there when that happens. And in that moment, if I'm really, really in my brain and like it's feeling like my brain doesn't actually want to let go of the steering wheel, then I do this thing where I bring my brain down into my heart. I'm like, okay, if you don't want to let go of the steering wheel, fine. I'm not going to try to pry you off of it. Let's just join the heart room. And when I do that, it's like at some point it does shift into like, it does shift more into then my attention is on my heart at that point. And then eventually the heart can take more of that kind of authority back. And once I'm there, I just do the meditation, the same meditation that I was describing. And even when I'm talking to somebody, I can still, bring my awareness to my heart simultaneously, like talking to this person, and do a breath or two from the heart. And that happens in the span of like 1 to 2 seconds, right? And so like, it's not like it interrupts the flow. But to be honest, I've actually had conversations where I actually just told people like, hey, can you give me like a minute to, can you give me a minute? I'll usually say a minute to think about it. I like to just be more honest though, because I'm not thinking about it. Then can you give me a minute to like, can you give me a minute to like just settle down or something like that, right? And then they're like, okay. And then I just sit there for a minute. And I'm just like,
wow,
and no one's, I've only tried this like once, but like during that time, it wasn't like they were like, are you done yet? Like, what's Lucy doing? It was like, No, Lucy says she needs a minute to get her
Yeah.
thoughts straight. So I'm
Yeah.
giving her a minute. She's doing that. And then I come back and I'm like, okay, I'm in a better,
Yeah.
I'm in a more clear space now.
Yeah. These
You can do
techniques.
it. Yeah. You can
Yeah.
do it in front of people.
Yeah. No, I love that. You haven't told me that you did that in front of somebody. I think that's amazing where you're just, I need a minute to connect into my heart. This sort of stuff excites me because when we do this in presence of other people, like I said, it can change the way in which we work, which is what I'm really interested in, individual by individual, shifting the culture of how we work to be more kinder to our nervous system. These techniques that you're talking about are offered by the HeartMath Institute, and they've been studied to create a state of coherence in the body. So the step one is dropping the attention into the heart. I love that elevator analogy of, okay, I'm descending into the heart. And all you need to do is just like feel your heart, feel the front of the chest, the back of the chest, the sides, the center, and just feel into that space. And even now, as I'm talking, I'm doing that. So I am in my heart right now as I'm talking. And then the second step is that breathing into the heart. So that visual of those noses and those mouths all around the heart, taking these elongated breaths into the heart. So it's heart focus, heart breath. And then if available, you want to generate some sort of good feeling emotion. I don't like to use the word positive because I think all emotions are positive and helpful, but something that feels good, a yummy feeling. So you could think of, an animal that you really love or a person that you really love or a place, and you just breathe into the heart. You don't have to do that third step. I mean, you don't have to do any of these steps, but these are ways to create a state of coherence. And what I love about heart coherence is that it's not about just being relaxed. This is a tool that we can gain when we are triggered. So in high stressful situations, if you are giving a presentation and you get nervous about public speaking, or if you have a meeting with somebody that's really high stakes, you can drop your attention into your heart. And what this does is it keeps your frontal lobe, the space of the brain that has to do with discernment, online. So if you're stressed out, that can go offline and then you're just reacting. But when you drop your attention into your heart, the frontal lobe stays online and you're able to be activated and yet composed. And this is the intelligence of the heart. So by you, in the middle of the meeting and you're starting to feel kind of a flurry and foggy, and you're saying, wait a second, I just need to get into my heart. I need a minute. And eventually, I mean, that's very smart of you to be like, I'm activated right now, or I'm foggy. Let me create composure by dropping into my heart, and find that intelligence in my heart so that I can lead in a heart-centered way. So I just want, to bring that to the table too, that it's not just about being relaxed. Like there's plenty of careers, like the HeartMath Institute works with professional athletes, for example, because if you're on a football field in front of who knows how many people, and you have all of this pressure to perform, you don't want to be relaxed. That's not the state you want to be in. You want to be clear. You want to be present. And as high performers, high achievers who often have high demanding jobs, you don't always want to be relaxed in the lower brainwave frequency. You want to have the skill set to be wildly present and wildly composed when the stakes are high. Mm-hmm. And so this is the intelligence of the heart. And this is part of leading a heart-centered business. Yes, it's warm and gooey at times, but it also is really practical and can be applied to, high stakes situations. So one more aspect I want to get to about the heart is that when you drop your attention into your heart, the heart has an electricity about it, right? So the heart's beating, it produces electricity, which creates a magnetic field around the body. And this magnetic field connects us into our environment. And this is maybe more of the magic part of this, of like, okay, we know that it communicates to other nervous systems, but it connects us to maybe non-locally to an energy grid. It connects us into maybe the unseen realm. It connects us into the earth's grid. It connects us into each other. And what ways has connecting into your heart offer you access into your environment, whether it's people or energy? Like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I will say that when I connect, so I'm connecting to my heart right now, actually, because I realize that I can't answer this question from my brain. I don't know how, right? So I will say that when I am connecting into my heart, there is a meditation that I just remember that I did, where it was getting, bringing awareness to the heart, breathing from the heart. And then you had this visualization where it's like I visualize or sense that I am energetically connecting to the earth and then connecting to the sky and cosmos. And then eventually it's like this energy just keeps expanding until I'm connected to, I sense that I'm connected to like all life forms, right? I think it's, it reminds me of a variation of a loving kindness meditation I've done before, where it's like you bring peace to yourself, and then you bring peace to everyone in the room, and then you keep expanding. And I've done like things like that before. But it was always hard for me to do those kinds of meditations because I couldn't visualize. I had a hard time visualizing the expansion process. I think I just have a hard time, I guess, visualizing things a lot of times. And in this one instance, when I was doing this meditation, I just got into my heart, and I just, instead of visualizing it, I just like felt like, what do you feel like? What does this feel like to feel connection? And then the visuals came up for me, but they were abstract visuals. They were like colors. And when I was connecting myself to the earth and to the cosmos, it was like the colors of the earth and the cosmos came to me. It was like they came to me. And I was, I wasn't trying to force a visualization. I was trying to feel this, feel a feeling, and then let it come to me. I wasn't even trying to feel a specific feeling. I think I was like allowing the feelings to come to me. And that was like one of the times where I brought my awareness into my heart, and I felt connection with everything else, but not because I was trying to force a connection or trying to reach anybody or anything. I was just tapping into the, oh man, I don't have the words. I was tapping into the energy of connection is the best way I can say it. It's not something I can explain logically or explain like with reasons or explain it on a logical level with words. It was just, I was tapping into that energy of connection. And then I felt this connection with everything around me, and they were coming to me. It was like they were connecting to me, not really the other way around. But once they connected to me, I connect back. It's how it felt like. It felt like there was these cores that connected to me, and then I reciprocated even. And by everything, I meant the earth. I meant all life forms, really. Like I meant the earth, like the life that's in the earth and the soils, and cosmos and people. I think eventually I was like, yeah, I want to sense into this feeling of connection. And it was easier to do from the, and it was and from the heart, when I was bringing my awareness to the heart and dropping the need to know how I can do this. It was like the heart attracted it. It was like kind of like the best way I can think about it. So I don't so that's kind of what it feels like. And I remember that feeling, and it felt really good, and it felt really peaceful, and it felt like everything was going to be okay, and everything is exactly the way it should be. And in my day-to-day, I've been wanting to kind of tap into that a little bit more, just like day-to-day, not just in like a 25-minute meditation session. And it's happened a few times where I drop into my heart. I drop into my heart for like a 5-minute kind of meditations, sometimes in the middle of the day. And then I feel this sense that it's the sense that everything is going to be okay. It's almost like it almost feels like something from the future is telling me this, that everything is going to be okay. So like the latest YouTube script that I wrote for my business, which has been by far our best performing video, I wrote that purely from the heart. I wrote that from the heart, and then I added some logic in at the end, but like it was heart led, right? The brain came later. The heart came first. I first did it from my heart, and it was like a personal story, and then and I remembered going back and forth on it a couple of times, and I just tapped into that energy of feeling connected. That's like a feeling I just kind of want to, I wanted to feel. And it was like I felt that I didn't, it wasn't like I visualized audience watching it or anything, but it was like I felt people getting something out of it. And I was like, yeah, they're gonna get something out of this video. And I don't know, it just like I almost felt like I was in the position of the audience, and it was like I can feel that there's this sense of like people are gonna get something out of this, and even if it's not what I think it is, they're gonna get something out of it. And so I kind of like leaned into that, and I guess that would be kind of like an example of me more of this I don't know if it's non-local intuition, but it's almost like an intuition that kind of, to me, almost transcended time, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I can tell the heart is speaking. That was so beautiful. The heart really, because of that magnetic field, I love how you said things came to you.
Yeah.
When we drop our attention into our heart, when we lead in a heart-centered way, there's a glow about us. There's the energy in others senses the energy in us. And, I recently recorded a video about embodying more feminine energy. And one of the ways that I offered in that video was to drop your attention into your heart, because masculine energy, that energy of forward thinking, of doing, of strategizing, of getting stuff done, is in the head. And then this energy of more receptivity, of becoming magnetic, of being present, of not making sense, lives in the heart, and sense in the logical way. It makes sense in a deep way. The heart does. So I love this visual of you dropping your attention into your heart and letting the energy come to you. That's that feminine energy of attracting people, ideas, words, of letting things flow. It's very flow based. And the heart does have a timeless energy to it. So there's a time, it collapses time, it collapses space, and it has the imagery of like a spiral. It spirals in and it spirals out. And we spiral in towards our deepest truth in the very center. And we spiral out towards connecting to others from that deepest truth. And it just expands and expands and expands. And when you tap into the feeling of connection as you're creating something, then your energy while you're creating it is that of connection. And of course, you're going to find connection. So all of this goes beyond logical reasoning. It's really hard. I mean, we can try to bring words to it, and we often can speak in symbolism and in metaphors. But when thinking of leading a heart-centered business, that is by definition one of feminine energy, of attracting, of receiving, of drawing to us. And that comes with putting the heart on the throne, like letting it lead. And it's not that the head is bad. We're just, as a society and a work culture, we're overly balanced towards the head. So creating some balance, it is going to offer something different in general than what our society offers at this point. There's a standout quality about it. There's a soft quality. There's a receptive quality about the heart. There's an expansive quality too, but it's a magnetic. It draws in. So, final question, kind of moving forward, knowing what you know about your heart and having these weeks of experience connecting into your heart, how will you approach your work differently? What are some things you're just going to do a little differently now that's going to stick with you past this kind of intensive deep dive into the heart?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the biggest one is just saying what I'm actually feeling right now. Don't put so many layers on top of things, just say what it is. And when I drop my awareness into my heart, it tells me what was the first thing I wanted to say before I added all the layers and layers, which my brain has a tendency to do. So that's like, I think that's like my biggest takeaway really from all of this is that my heart says what I really think. my brain tends to say what I think other people want to hear. It's like they're very different. And that it really is coming from a place of integrity, coming place from like, I want to live life from a place of integrity. because that's the type of person I want to be, but also because it just feels better that way. And I do my best work when I'm living from a place of integrity. And when I live, and to me, that's synonymous with saying living from my heart. And when I say like the heart, I think the heart, when I listen to my heart, it reveals to me what I really want. And, by extension, right? This is because one of my questions is always like, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. And I have like so many self-doubt, but when I leave from my heart, I don't feel that doubt about, am I doing the right thing? It may not feel good, but I don't feel that doubt. And I feel like whatever I'm doing is like in harmony with like life in the universe, because I'm in one of the meditations, it had this, I think, yeah, you mentioned this thing where it's like when you shine your unique light, which I interpret it as like when you really live in your authentic state, living from a place of like unapologetic integrity. When you shine your unique light, you light up the collective, right? And yeah, and that is something that, yeah, I believe that. I believe the best way to serve the world is doing, coming from your place of authenticity. And so when I say that living from the heart means that I'm living in line with who I truly am, I also mean living from the heart means in line with the natural flow of life in the universe. Like, this is who I'm meant to be. If I try to be someone I wasn't meant to be, then I'm going against the universe. I'm going like I'm going, I'm playing an upstream. I'm trying to go upstream when life is set up for me to go downstream. Yes. And when I go downstream, things are easier, and I feel better, the process and the destination. And people like me better when I'm going downstream. And so, yeah. And one last thing I wanted to say about heart-based decision-making is, I think we talked about how heart-based decision-making, there's no reasons, it can feel kind of magical. It can feel like, it can feel like, I don't really know why, kind of thing. And I will say that it's interesting when I make decisions from the heart, in the moment, I don't know why. And I don't try to come up with reasons why, because usually they're just stories and they're not real. But the why, there usually is a reason. It just doesn't get revealed to me until much later. And when I'm not looking for it, then the reason gets revealed. And then I can retroactively be like, that was why I felt that way. But in the moment, I don't know why. But, and I wonder if this will be helpful to people, because I had a block where it's like, I was really scared of doing things if there was no reason behind it, because to me, then it felt like it was just a reactive, like snap judgment kind of thing. But what I found is that when I lead conscious heart-based decisions, there is a reason. I just don't always, it doesn't reveal itself to me until later. So, so now I'm like, okay, it's not that there's no reason. There is a reason. I just don't know what it is right now. And that makes me feel safe to know that.
Yeah, that's that collapse of time. And I just love what you said. When I lead from my heart, when I work from my heart, I'm in flow with the universe.
Yes.
And I'm flowing downstream. And who doesn't want that?
Yes.
Who does not want to flow downstream in their work? Like water trickling down a river, just so easeful, so in flow. And the heart offers that path where the mind doesn't often know that path. And so I think, that sounds like an amazing place to end. When I'm in flow, when I'm in my heart, I'm in flow with the universe and connected to my deepest truth. Mm-hmm. And that's what leading a heart-centered business is. That's what working in a heart-centered way is. And the more conversations we have around it, the more normalized it will be. So I'm going to link for sure. There's one meditation that I have on YouTube that I'm going to link. If you're like, okay, I don't really know how to drop my attention into your heart and my heart and breathe into my heart. So that'll help guide you into that process. I'm going to link Lucy's YouTube channel and our previous conversation in the chat as well, or in the description box. If you enjoyed this conversation, we're going to have 2 more. So keep an eye out. They'll be over the next 3 or 4 months. Please leave a comment of any takeaways you got. If you have any questions, you can leave that as well. If this conversation added value to your life, we would appreciate if you liked the video, and that will help it be seen by others who also are interested in this content of working in a heart-centered way. And I just want to thank you so much, Lucy, for your time and for being willing to share your process and your uncoverings publicly. I know this sort of work can be very intimate. It can be very precious in some ways. So by you being willing to share and to talk about this, it will hopefully help others who are high achieving, high performing, who desire to work in a more delicious way to walk that path on their own. This topic started to focus on business, but this helped me make a heart-centered decision regarding a previous relationship. Thank you.
Oh,
Yes,
yay.
it all crosses over. You're so welcome. So yeah, thank you for tuning in, and thank you, Lucy, for being here.
You're welcome. The pleasure's all mine. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you.